What's the address of the emergency?
It's 1708 Maple Avenue.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
My friend is staying with me, and I just walked in, and she's laying on the bathroom floor, and there's blood everywhere, and I don't know what happened.
Is she awake?
She's not awake. There's blood all over her face and all on the back of her head.
Is she breathing?
No, she's not breathing.
I've got the paramedics on the way to help you. Stay on the line, Caitlin.
8:36 p.m. Mo Wilson unlocks her front door. Her phone pings the notification. She's home. She's safe. The smart lock logs the entry. 8:36 p.m. exactly, and sends the confirmation to her friend's phone the way it always does. She'd had a good evening. A swim at Deep Eddy Pool, dinner with Colin. Nothing complicated. Nothing that should have been the last meal of her life. 8:37 p.m. A black Jeep Cherokee rolls past the property. Bike rack on the hitch. Luggage rack on the roof. Chrome trim around the windows. It moves slowly. Then it stops. Colin had been gone for 60 seconds. 8:38 p.m. A Ring doorbell camera on a neighbor's house picks up an alert tone from inside the apartment. Then 3 shots. Then a scream. That scream is the last sound Mo Wilson ever made. By the time you finish this video, you'll know exactly what happened in those 90 minutes and in the months of planning that made them possible. You'll know about the fitness app used to track her movements, the gun purchased as a gift, the interrogation where a suspect asked to leave 3 times in 4 minutes, and you'll know about the man who bought the murder weapon, hid the relationship that created the motive, and has never faced a single legal consequence. That question is where this video ends. Stay with me. Her name was Anna Moriah Wilson. Everyone called her Mo. She grew up in Kirby, Vermont, a small town built for people who love the outdoors and don't need much else. She was the kind of child who needed a therapist, not because something was wrong with her, but because her drive was so fierce, her parents worried it would consume her. She was a perfectionist at 11 years old. By 14, she was racing skis competitively. By the time she graduated from Dartmouth with an engineering degree in 2019, the world was genuinely at her feet. She chose cycling. Not immediately. She spent time as a demand planner for a bike manufacturer, sitting inside the corporate structure she'd been educated for before deciding that wasn't the life she wanted. So she walked away. She turned the thing she loved into the thing she did. In November 2020, she completed the Moab White Rim Trail, a 100-mile loop through the canyons of Utah, in just under 7 hours. A new women's record. She was 24 years old. By 2022, she was one of the most watched riders in professional gravel cycling, modest in interviews, generous with competitors. The kind of athlete people described, not just in terms of results, but in terms of what it felt like to be around her. She was in Austin for a race weekend. The Gravel Locos event in Hico, Texas, 3 days away. She was one of the favorites to win. She was staying at a friend's apartment on East 7th Street, a compact, quiet place in East Austin. She had a code for the smart lock. Nothing about any of this should have mattered beyond race logistics. On the evening of May 11th, 2022, Mo left the apartment just before 6 p.m. to meet Colin Strickland, a fellow professional cyclist she'd known for several months. They went to Deep Eddy Pool. They swam. They ate dinner at a local restaurant. Surveillance cameras would later confirm they were there. Relaxed, nothing unusual. 2 people at the end of a normal evening. Nabiri. Colin dropped her home at approximately 8:35 p.m. He did not go inside. He left. At 8:36 p.m., the smart lock logged her entry. At 8:38 p.m., the neighbor's doorbell camera captured the shots. That is the entire window. 90 minutes from leaving the apartment to the 911 call. 2 minutes from walking through her own front door to being shot 3 times, twice in the head, once through the heart, while already lying on the bathroom floor. When Caitlin Cash returned to her apartment shortly before 10 p.m., she found her friend unconscious. There was blood across the bathroom floor, up the wall, pooled beneath Mo's head. She called 911. She tried chest compressions. She counted out loud the way the operator told her to. It didn't work. By the time first responders arrived, Mo Wilson was gone. Officers moved through the apartment carefully. No drawers forced open. Nothing obviously missing. No sign of a struggle beyond the bathroom. The front door had been unlocked, not forced. Whoever came in easily. Outside, 70 feet from the property, they found Mo's bicycle. A high-end gravel bike worth thousands of dollars. Not stolen, not hidden. Just thrown into a thick growth of bamboo like it was something to get rid of quickly. A shell casing near the body. Then another. The firearm was gone. One of the first officers on scene said it plainly. This didn't look like a robbery. Nothing about the scene suggested panic or opportunism. No ransacking. No escape in a hurry. Execution style, one investigator noted. This was personal. By the time the crime scene unit arrived, that conclusion was already forming. Someone had known Mo Wilson would be at that address. Someone had known when she'd arrive home. Someone had known she would be alone. The question wasn't whether this was random. It was never random. The question was who had been watching, and for how long. To understand what happened on May 11th, you have to go back 18 months. Because what took place in that apartment wasn't a snap decision. It wasn't a crime of passion. It was the final step in a sequence of decisions that began long before Mo Wilson ever set foot in Austin. This wasn't rage. This was a plan. Caitlin Armstrong and Colin Strickland met on a dating app in October 2018. He was a Red Bull-sponsored professional cyclist with 40,000 Instagram followers and an eccentric, farm-raised personality that didn't fit neatly into any category. She was a yoga instructor and licensed realtor, athletic, sociable, described by people who knew her as calm, grounded, gentle even. They moved in together in 2021 after a plumbing incident forced the issue. By October of the same year, the relationship had fractured. They called it off, and they kept living together, separate bedrooms, separate lives under the same roof, neither of them in any rush to formalize the ending. That same month, Colin went to a local cycling event. Mo Wilson was there. They were both recently single. They were both professional cyclists in a small insular community. They hit it off quickly. A brief romantic relationship that lasted a matter of weeks before Colin ended it. He and Caitlin eventually reconciled. Mo, by all accounts, accepted the situation and moved back into the category of friend. Except Colin didn't quite let it end there. The two continued to meet privately, casually, quietly. And the way Colin managed that quiet contact tells you everything you need to know about the conditions he was creating without fully understanding what he was building. He stored Mo's number in his phone under a different name. He deleted their text messages. On the evening of May 11th, hours before Mo was killed, he dropped her home after swimming and dinner, then sent Caitlin the following text. "Hey, are you out? I went to drop some flowers for Allison at her son's house up north, and then my phone died. Heading home." There was no Allison. There were no flowers. He had just spent the evening with Mo Wilson and lied about every detail of it. Caitlin knew. Not everything. Not the full picture. But enough. She had access to Colin's accounts through their shared business. She could read his messages. She had been watching the contact between them build. The private meets, the deleted threads, the name she didn't recognize in his phone that turned out to be a name she knew very well. Seize A, and she had another tool. Mo Wilson was a professional athlete who shared her training publicly on Strava, a fitness tracking app widely used in the cycling community. Every ride logged, every route mapped, every timestamp visible to anyone who followed her profile. Mo shared it because she was open, because she was part of a community that celebrated that kind of transparency, because it never occurred to her that sharing a training ride could make her a target. Investigators believe Caitlin Armstrong was reading those posts, every route, every location, every pattern in Mo's movements through Austin. The same app Mo used to connect with the sport she loved may have been the tool used to track her in the days before she was killed. By the time December 2021 arrived, Caitlin had already begun harassing Mo directly. Threatening texts. Repeated calls. The contact was severe enough that Mo blocked her and begged Colin to make it stop. Colin didn't make it stop. In December 2021, he walked into a gun shop and purchased two 9mm firearms. One for himself, a Springfield Arms EMP. One for Caitlin, a Sig Sauer bought as a gift. For her protection, he said. He wanted her to feel safe when she was home alone. 3 days before Mo Wilson was murdered, Caitlin Armstrong went to a firing range. She practiced. On the day of May 11th, before Mo had even returned from dinner, 4 separate cameras in the neighborhood captured the same vehicle. A black Jeep Cherokee, bike rack on the hitch, luggage rack on the roof, chrome trim around the windows. It circled the block, then circled it again. For approximately 1 hour before the shots were fired, Anna, that Jeep moved slowly through the streets around Mo Wilson's address, waiting, watching, mapping the moment. This is the part of the case that demands a framework beyond jealousy. Jealousy is reactive. Jealousy flares and burns out. Jealousy doesn't spend months reading someone's training routes, doesn't visit a firing range 3 days in advance, doesn't circle a block for 60 minutes in the dark, waiting for the right window. What Caitlin Armstrong displayed wasn't jealousy, it was possession. Criminologists describe a category of homicide where the driving psychology isn't anger, it's ownership. The perpetrator doesn't see the victim as a rival. They see them as an object, something that was taken, something that needs to be reclaimed or removed. Every decision in this case maps onto that pattern with cold precision. The Strava surveillance, the months of watching, the harassment, the gun, the firing range, the circling Jeep. I call it the trophy theory. Mo Wilson wasn't a threat to Caitlin Armstrong. She was a prize that someone else was holding, and Caitlin Armstrong had decided, methodically, patiently, over the course of 18 months, that she was going to take it back. She wasn't watching Mo out of paranoia. She was conducting reconnaissance, and she had been preparing for this moment for months. The morning after Mo Wilson was killed, Colin Strickland sat in his garage and learned his friend was dead. An investigator delivered the news directly. Colin's response, by all accounts, was a blank stare. The kind of stillness that looks like shock and might be something else entirely. He cooperated immediately, gave his timeline without resistance, confirmed the swim, the dinner, the drop-off. Surveillance footage backed up every detail. Colin Strickland was not the man they were looking for, but the woman whose Jeep was in his driveway, the woman whose name kept surfacing in every conversation, whose vehicle had been captured on 4 separate cameras circling Mo's block, she was nowhere to be found. Police needed to talk to Caitlin Armstrong. They found a way in through an old warrant. Unpaid Botox treatments, a Class B misdemeanor, minor enough to be almost embarrassing. Officers tracked her down, placed her in handcuffs outside her home and brought her in. Then they checked the paperwork. The date of birth on the warrant was wrong. Technically, it wasn't valid. Technically, she wasn't under arrest. The officer looked at her across the table and said it plainly. "You're free to go." But before she stood up, he added, "I'd really like to talk to you first. Colin brought your name up. I just want to get your side of it." What happened next is one of the most revealing sequences in the entire case. Caitlin Armstrong sat in that room for longer than she needed to. She asked about the warrant. She wanted to understand exactly what she was being held for. She was calm, composed, almost dismissive, for as long as the conversation stayed on the Botox charge. Then, the investigator opened a different door. "It sounds like there were some issues between you and this girl." "That is not accurate. I would like to leave. Your vehicle was seen in the area near her house." "I would like to leave. There might be a logical explanation. Maybe you were upset. Maybe you were just in the neighborhood. I don't have your story. Right now, I only have his." "I would like to leave." 3 times. The same 4 words. Not "I didn't do anything." Not "what are you implying?" Not "tell me exactly what he said." Just 4 words, repeated with the precision of someone who understood exactly what was happening in that room and had decided the only safe move was the door. Watch what a person stops defending. Now, she never asked what evidence they had. She never asked what Colin had actually told them. She never pushed back on the vehicle sighting with an alibi or an explanation. The moment the Jeep came up, she was done talking. Police had no choice. They let her go. Within 24 hours, Caitlin Armstrong had sold her Jeep to a dealership for $12,000 cash. Within 48 hours, every social media profile she owned had been deleted. On May 17th, 6 days after Mo Wilson's body was found, one day after investigators issued a homicide warrant in her name, Caitlin Armstrong walked through Austin Bergstrom International Airport wearing white trousers, a blue jacket, and a black face mask. She was carrying a yoga mat. She boarded a flight to New York. From New York, she traveled to her sister's apartment. Her sister's passport went missing shortly after. Under her sister's name, she booked a one-way ticket. Not back to Austin. Not anywhere domestic. Costa Rica. Santa Teresa is the kind of place people go when they want to disappear into something beautiful. A remote beach town on the Nicoya Peninsula. 3 hours by road, 2 hours by ferry from the nearest major airport. Surf bars? Bakeries? A loose community of Western travelers who ask very few questions and expect the same courtesy in return. Caitlin Armstrong arrived and became Ari. She cut her hair, dyed it, took a room at Don John's Surf and Yoga Lodge for less than $20 a night. She taught yoga classes. She went to beach barbecues. She made friends. She had a bandage across her nose for the first stretch of her stay. She told people it was a surfing accident. It wasn't. The nose job had cost her $6,000. A new face to go with the new name. A fresh start, purchased in cash, in a country with no extradition urgency and no one looking for a woman named Ari. For 43 days, it worked. U.S. Marshals had been tracking the pattern. They knew she was in Costa Rica. They knew she was teaching yoga. What they didn't have was a precise location. Santa Teresa's remoteness made conventional surveillance difficult. So they tried something different. They placed a Facebook advertisement. A local hostel, they said, was looking for a yoga instructor. Caitlin Armstrong responded to the ad. The people waiting for her weren't hostel staff. On June 29, 2022, Costa Rican officials approached her outside the hostel, asked for identification, and searched her room when she said she didn't have any. Inside a safe, they found the passports. Her sister's. Her own. Her cover was gone. She was detained on an immigration violation, extradited back to the United States, and charged with first-degree murder. 43 days. A new face. A new name. Beach parties and yoga classes and margaritas by the pool, while Mo Wilson's family waited for answers. She didn't run like a guilty person panicking. She ran like someone who believed she had earned the right to start over. That is the trophy theory in motion, not just in the murder, but in everything that followed it. The nose job wasn't vanity under pressure. The new name wasn't desperation. It was an entitlement. The belief that what she had done was a transaction she had completed, and now she was owed a clean slate. 43 days. And not once, not one single day, did she appear to grieve what she had done. The trial began in November 2023. 40 witnesses over several days. A prosecution that had spent 18 months building a case from surveillance footage, GPS data, ballistic analysis, and digital records. A defense that had spent the same period looking for the gaps. And there were gaps. No eyewitness had seen Caitlin Armstrong enter the apartment. Not one. No camera had captured her at the front door. The physical evidence placing her inside the property on the night of May 11th was entirely circumstantial, powerful, layered, and circumstantial. Her defense attorney, Jeffrey Purier, leaned into that reality with precision. The SUV footage showed a vehicle in the area, not a person committing a crime. The ballistic match was strong, but the gun had passed through multiple hands, and the DNA recovered from the Jeep seat, and the gun itself and the handlebars had never been fully tested. Unknown profiles, unexplored threads. A prosecution, the defense argued, that had decided on its suspect early and built its case accordingly. A web of circumstantial evidence, Purier told the jury. Decisions and judgments, not proof. It was a serious argument, seriously made. Then prosecutors went back to the bike. Mo Wilson's bicycle, the one found thrown into bamboo 70 feet from the property on the night of the murder, had been swabbed for DNA during the original crime scene investigation. That swab had waited. Quietly. Through the manhunt, the extradition, the pretrial hearings, the defense motions. When the results were presented in court, they were unambiguous. The DNA recovered from the seat of Mo Wilson's bicycle included a profile with a very strong likelihood of matching Caitlin Armstrong. That was the fingerprint the prosecution had been waiting for. Not a witness, not a confession. A biological trace on a dead woman's bicycle, connecting the person who threw it into the bamboo to the person who had been circling the block for an hour before the shots were fired? The defense had no answer for it. After 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. We, the jury, find the defendant, Caitlin Armstrong, guilty of the offense of murder. The courtroom absorbed it in near silence. Caitlin Armstrong, by multiple accounts, showed nothing. No collapse, no tears. The same composure she had carried through the interrogation, through the extradition, through every day of the trial. It held even now. The following day, the sentencing phase began. 90 years. $10,000. The maximum the prosecution had sought and the jury had delivered. Before the sentence was handed down, Mo Wilson's family spoke. Her mother stood in that courtroom and looked directly at the woman who had killed her daughter. When you shot Moriah in the heart, she said, you shot me in my heart. She spoke about Mo's light, about what had been taken, about the future that had been erased 3 days before a race Mo had been training for all season. About a daughter who had set records, crossed deserts, climbed to the top of her sport on sheer determination, and who would never compete again because someone had decided she was a problem that needed to be removed. Moriah is in the presence of God's pure light and love, her mother said. And nothing can ever hurt her again. There is nothing to add to that. Some statements carry their own weight and need no analysis. But there is a question the verdict did not answer. Colin Strickland took the stand during the trial. He described his relationship with Caitlin Armstrong. He described the complexity of their arrangement. He described his connection to Mo Wilson, the swimming, the dinners, the private contact he had kept carefully hidden. Under cross-examination, he said something that has stayed with many people who followed this case closely. He described Caitlin Armstrong as one of the least volatile people he had ever met. He said this while sitting in a courtroom where she was on trial for a murder committed with a weapon he had purchased, in a jealousy spiral that his own deceptions had constructed. He stored Mo's number under a false name. He deleted their messages. He lied to Caitlin on the night of the murder about where he had been and who he had seen. He bought the Sig Sauer that killed Moriah Wilson and handed it to Caitlin as a gift. The prosecution's own argument, the motive they presented to the jury, was that Caitlin Armstrong acted out of jealousy provoked by Colin Strickland's secret relationship with Mo Wilson. Colin Strickland built that secret, brick by brick, hidden name by hidden name, deleted message by deleted message. He was never charged, never arrested, never required to answer for any of it. He is still competing professionally. The trophy theory ends here, not with Caitlin Armstrong's sentence, but with the shape of what remains. She believed Mo Wilson was something to be possessed, something to be reclaimed or eliminated. That belief drove 18 months of surveillance, harassment, preparation, and finally, execution. The justice system saw it, named it, and sentenced it to 90 years. But possession in this case had 2 architects. One of them is serving 90 years in a Texas prison. The other one is still cycling. Moriah Wilson was 25 years old. She logged every training ride on Strava because she loved the community she was part of. She set a national record on a 100-mile desert loop because her drive wouldn't let her stop. She was 3 days from the biggest race of her career. She was killed because a man couldn't be honest with the woman he lived with. Caitlin Armstrong pulled the trigger. Colin Strickland bought the gun, built the secret, created the jealousy, and walked away clean. Dow, the justice system answered one question on November 2023. Here is the one it left open, and I want you to take it into the comments section below. Does the verdict give you closure? Or does the fact that Colin Strickland faces no consequence make justice in this case feel incomplete? Because Moriah Wilson's family has to live with both answers simultaneously. And so, in a way, does everyone who followed this case and believed that truth and accountability are supposed to be the same thing. They aren't always. Make of that what you will.